Hello, friends, and welcome back to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. I'm already frustrated. It's got nothing to do with this. I'll explain more later, but yeah. Gonna be some retconning in a previous video, I think. Anyway, my being bummed out aside, today we're looking at Unique Toys Challenger, which has been a long time coming because I feel like I've had this thing pre-ordered since my 5th birthday. It has been a while. I'll spare you all the details, but basically I pre-ordered it through one place. It was taking them forever to get it in, and finally I was just like, screw it, so canceled my pre-order, ended up ordering this guy through Toy Dojo, and now I actually have him, and as far as I'm aware, the place I ordered it from still doesn't have it in stock. In terms of QC stuff, which I'm sure people are probably curious about if they've done any kind of research on this figure beforehand, mine came relatively fine. There were just a couple of small things. One being you can kind of see it here, the smokestacks that end up in the robot mode back were fused in place, and one of them snapped when I tried to rotate it, so I just glued it back in place and just leave them there now. And yeah, it breaks up this a little bit because it breaks up that pipe, but other than that, not a huge problem. I did have all of my tires, which was good, because that's another issue that I knew to look out for. I had a weird one where the left headlight kept popping off. No idea why, but I ended up just putting a little bit of glue on there and sticking it in, and now it's been fine. So that was strange. But yeah, and it was just the left one. I don't know, the right one's been fine. Hasn't given me any trouble. But the left headlight really liked to try popping off. And then one other thing, I had the same issue that Emgo was talking about having, and I still kind of have it, in that this seam right here doesn't want to peg together fully. I sort of kind of got around it a little bit. You can see that it's not as pronounced by actually going in with a pair of snippers and just snipping the end off of that peg. So it's a little bit shorter. I tried sanding it down. That didn't really accomplish much, but snipping the end off and filing it down a little bit to just smooth it out seems to have made it so that it at least closes that gap up a little bit more. So yeah, that's it for my truck mode QC issues. But, you know, that stuff aside, I actually really like this figure. It's fantastic. I do have the door open because it's something you can do, and it's a pain in the butt to do without some kind of tool. So I just have one door open to kind of show that off, and it serves no purpose, but it's kind of cute that they did it, I guess. I don't know. I think it's silly, but yeah. So, Challenger is, as you're all probably aware, a take on a, I guess, movie masterpiece rendition of Age of Extinction / The Last Knight Optimus Prime. I should say the end of the Age of Extinction, and then the entirety of The Last Knight. And I don't like this truck. I mean, I don't mean I don't like the toy. I think for what it is, this is actually really fantastically done, and as I suspected when I had this guy pre-ordered, I absolutely adore the engineering on this guy. It's brilliant, in the same level as Perukill, which, I mean, same company, so of course. But I love how you can go from one mode to the other, and it's like basically the entire thing turns inside out to go back and forth from vehicle to robot. Really clever. And I love how sort of complete this truck cab looks. I don't like the truck itself. It's not the toy, it's just this truck. I think this truck design is stupid and gaudy and not my jam at all. I really don't like this truck. Not the toy, this truck. And I know this is accurate to the movie. I thought the truck looked terrible in the movie. But that said, it is nicely detailed. There are some things on here, though, it's a little bit kind of, I don't know, I might go in and fix it myself. Like, up along here, none of those lights have any color to them. I do like that the windshield and side windows are black. Thank goodness for that. You all know how I feel about translucent plastic for toys like this. It's so stupid to be able to just look inside and see a bunch of robot junk crammed in there. I don't understand why companies like doing that. I feel like tinted windows work so much better, and it kind of helps build that illusion. Anyway, got some nice little bits of detail picked out in silver all around here. Big old chrome grill there with a little spot for probably a really tiny Autobot logo. The headlights, I'm not a fan. They're clear plastic, and they're so clear that it's hard to even tell that there's plastic there. I feel like these probably could have been tinted in some color, like even just like a grayish or something, because it doesn't really even look like there's plastic there half the time. And all it leads to is you being able to see like the little seams where it plugs into the plastic there. Wheels do look nice, and they are rubber, or at least soft plastic, which is cool. I mean, it's not something that I find absolutely necessary, but it's still a cool feature. And actually chrome rims instead of painted silver, which is nice. And I'm not entirely sure why, but this bit here was not painted silver, and it's the same on either side, so you can see that it's kind of a throughout thing, and it's, I don't know, it's a little bit annoying because it goes from silver down to unpainted gray, but at the same time, I'm not going to leave this guy in truck mode because that's not my favorite mode, and also I didn't even notice that this color differential was there until I started filming this, so not a huge problem, but it would have been nice if that went all the way through, because they do have this flame design going all the way through, even though the shade here does not match up to what's going on elsewhere. With this flame deco, I think it's fine. I've never been the hugest fan of it, but it's fine. This side's a little darker than this side, so that's a little bit uneven. I don't know, Unique Toys. And also, the pinstriping is weird to me. I don't know if this is an accuracy thing or what, but this is actually a kind of bluish white, and I feel like it would pop more if it was white and not this kind of bluish color. I don't really know why they did that, but like I said, it may have been a accuracy thing. Also, it kind of cuts off here. I don't know if it's supposed to keep going on up there, but it is a little cut off. I don't particularly care, but you know, something that someone's bound to care about. And I like that they painted these details along here silver, and this bit here is actually metal, but it's close enough to the silver that it kind of blends in. And the back is a little bit messy, especially right back here, but given everything that this figure does, it doesn't bother me that much, and at least the back of the cab is pretty clean. And it would be even more clean if I could rotate those bits out, but I also kind of like how this works here, with the rear bumper actually being the top portion of the robot mode chest. And there are some lights in there that could do with some paint. I may end up doing that myself, I don't know. Like I said, not a huge fan, or any sort of fan, of this truck at all, just in a general sense. But I absolutely appreciate the level of detailing and paint that they put on here, even though some of it's a little bit wishy-washy in places. But overall, very cool. This is going to be interesting because I'm going to try to do some size comparisons, and that resulted in transforming a lot of what I consider my my movie masterpiece figures. So bear with me, this might take a little while. Here's the official movie masterpiece Optimus Prime. It's not technically the official one because this is the Legendary Toys version, which is the superior version. Thank you very much. But it's the same size, so at least in scale you can kind of see how that works. And looking at them together, I have to say I'm actually kind of impressed, even though they're made by two completely different companies. In some cases, the shades, while not an exact match, are actually relatively close to each other. Like that blue is a similar enough shade to that blue, and that red, it's not quite the same, but it still kind of works. And of course, the silvers and the chrome and whatnot. It just makes me think that like this could actually sort of evolve into that, which is pretty cool. And there he is with Movie Masterpiece Barricade. with that clear plastic for the windows. Urgh. And in a weird way, the scale between the two of them doesn't really bother me. I mean, I don't really care about scale regardless, but if you just imagine how big someone would have to be to sit in the driver's seat of this and this, it's not that far off, really. And getting back to the unofficial, but still sort of official Movie Masterpiece figures, here's the Legendary Toys Wasp, which is the far superior knockoff version of Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee. And again, the scale doesn't seem that off. I mean, he's still enormous compared to that, but, it's a truck versus a Camaro, so that checks out in my mind. And just because being that we haven't gotten a Movie Masterpiece version of Jazz yet, somebody should get on that. But here he is with Human Alliance Jazz, and again, I think it works. For something a little more current in the movie line, here he is with Studio Series Starscream, and that absolutely does not work. And for a pseudo knockoff, not really Masterpiece, but I still consider it Masterpiece because it's still really darn cool, here it is with Jangs Detective, their upscaled, re-engineered to heck and back version of Age of Extinction Hound. And this thing is why I'm bummed. You'll see why in robot mode, but I'm mad at you. Also, I don't have any idea how accurate this is. I feel like the scale's off, and also this looks like it should be bigger than this, but I don't really know how the real-world vehicles compare. And lastly, in the case of Masterpiece-ish stuff, and because these are both Movie Masterpiece-ish figures from the same company, here he is with Peru Kill. And I don't know how that scale checks out. I really don't. But I will say, I actually appreciate how the windows on this are very, very solid, whereas it still kind of bums me out with this, and even the knockoff version that some company that I don't remember right now did, how you can see where the windshield pegs in, and it just, I wish they had done that in a darker plastic. Bums me out just a tad. But anyway, here we've got the two of them together. Oh, also, while I'm talking about the things that bummed me out, while I was transforming this guy a couple of weeks ago, I don't know why, but the silver for the the silver for the side mirrors came off in my fingers. Like, I don't know if it was just flaky paint or a sticker, but it came right off in just like a little sheet, a little flaky sheet. So I need to go in there and paint that myself at some point, I think. So that also kind of bummed me out. Not as much as what happened with Detective, though. And lastly, here you can see Challenger with a mostly recent... I'm in the process of getting some Siege Deluxes, so, bear with me. But the mostly recent Power of the Primes Deluxe, and yeah, he's a big truck. I don't have any of the movie leader primes to compare him to because I thought they all looked terrible. No disrespect to anyone who actually likes those toys. It's just I personally don't like the look of the robot modes for those at all. So I don't have any of them, so I can't really do a direct comparison for those. So, yeah. And I do believe that is all I have to say about this truck. Because, I mean, it's a truck. I already said I'm not really fond of the design of the truck as it is, just like the real-world truck. To reiterate, the real-world truck. It's not the toy that I have the problem with. Just not my thing. So, time to get to something that is my thing, and that something is, of course, the robot mode. And now I am tired. This transformation is definitely involved. It's actually not bad, and I enjoy doing it, and it's somewhat magical, much like Perukill, because, the whole thing turns inside out, and it's like, what happened to the truck? But I'm exhausted because I also had to transform 8 other things for comparison, and at least 5. 5 of those are somewhat complicated and time-consuming. So, it's been an evening. But yes, Challenger is pretty spectacular. Now, before I get into looking at all of the details and talking about the various other visual bits of the figure, I think I'm actually going to do the size comparisons first, just to kind of get that out of the way. So, here he is with most of the Masterpiece analogs that I've got. Some official, some not official, some knockoffs of official ones. So, there he is with Perukill, Legendary Toys version of Movie Masterpiece Prime, which is the same size as regular Movie Masterpiece Prime. Legendary Toys version of Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee, which is the same size as actual Movie Masterpiece Bumblebee. And then Movie Masterpiece Barricade. He's a rather large guy. And here he is with other movie figures that are not actually Masterpiece, but are kind of vaguely in that ballpark, with Human Alliance Jazz and Studio Series Starscream. Wow, looking at him like this, it's pretty amazing. It, if one didn't know better, could easily mistake Jazz for being Deluxe Jazz. There he is with a recent-ish Power of the Primes Deluxe, just in case there was any doubt that this guy is quite large. And here he is with Jangs Detective. Can you tell why I'm not happy? And if you're still having trouble, let me give you a hand. Yeah. That cracked elbow that he has while I was transforming him into his truck mode completely sheared off. The entire arm just came off at the elbow, so I'm going to have to hopefully maybe fix that. We'll see. It's going to be tricky because there's a pin that goes right through the middle, but give it a shot. Not particularly happy about this outcome. So there is all of that. Now, if you don't mind, I am going to move this camera in a bit because that just makes things easier. He is quite the tall fellow, and that's okay. I don't mind the tallness. I think it's pretty cool. And I also think it's pretty cool how you've got a reasonably sized, fairly big truck that turns into something that's, like, even though the truck is pretty big, this still seems like way too big to have come from that truck. I like that. I love it when transformations make me question things like physics and reality. Right, so, in terms of the general coloration, I think it's totally fine. I'm still of the mindset that I kind of wish that they used white pinstriping for the edges of the flame details rather than this really kind of washed out bluish white. It's okay in the grand scheme of things. I just think it would pop a little bit better. And also, as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing that the reds in some spots, like on the forearms and the backs of the fists, are pretty muted. And I'm not entirely sure why those areas are more muted than others, but I don't know, maybe they rushed this out and didn't paint stuff as much or give it as many coats as they should have. I don't know. It still looks fine. It's just, if I'm going to nitpick the way this thing looks, there are some issues like that throughout. And I keep going back and forth with myself on how I feel about the overall silhouette of this guy. Because, taken as a whole, I think he looks really freaking cool. And once he's posed slightly, maybe, turned a little bit so that he's, not quite looking straight on, he does look really imposing and really awesome. When you're looking at him dead on like this, you start to notice how weirdly proportioned his torso is. I wouldn't even necessarily mind the broad chest if it tapered more into the waist a bit. And instead, he's got I can't even really call it an hourglass figure. I'd say it's more of like a dumbbell figure, where it's wider and then narrow for a fair bit and then comes out a little bit more. Or maybe lamp. Maybe his figure is lamp. But whatever you want to call it, that weird proportion with the chest kind of sometimes bugs me and sometimes doesn't. Not enough for me to be like, oh, this toy sucks or anything like that, but, you know, every now and then I look at it and it's just like, oh, that chest is weird, and then other times I don't even care. And like I said, if you turn him even just a little bit, it offsets that a fair bit. Another thing that's kind of weird to me, and I mean, I don't, you know, it's fine. I don't know how else they could have done it with the magic that they work with this transformation, but his feet are a little weird. These bits look fine, but then you've got these weird things that, like, the tires are under there, and these just kind of, like, this side doesn't bother me as much, but this is a very noticeable bit that's sticking out. And in the grand scheme of things, you're not really looking at his feet that much, but it does, you know, it's what I would consider a visual flaw. But the detailing, oh goodness, the detailing. It is really nice molding, lots of really nice paint throughout. Like the silver, the gold, that metallic red, which I wish was a bit more common elsewhere. I love how so much of the sides of the truck turn inside out to become his legs from the knee down. Like, it masks everything pretty well. And there's some nice metallic red on the backs of the thighs. I kind of wish these were just painted details that were molded rather than wire, like little plasticky wires that are sticking out that I'm always paranoid I'm going to shear. But it's okay. The front skirt is fine. I don't know why that's like what that little detail is, but fine. The hip skirts do bug me a little bit. Just a little bit. Mostly because of the way they're designed. They're like spring-loaded, and they want to move in this way. So if you want to move them out of the way, they just spring right back into action. And when you have them down like this, they don't really move at all. So it's weird. It's very weird. Speaking of very weird, I'm also not super into the way they did his waist, because you've got pretty significant gappage there. You can offset it a bit by moving the hip skirts out and kind of pushing the legs up a bit, but while that kind of handles that with the gappiness, like it kind of covers that up, it gets in the way of his leg articulation a bit, and it also makes his thighs sit a little too high. So it's kind of like, you know, which do you want? Do you want the unsightly gap, or do you want the unsightly proportions? So usually I keep this guy on a shelf so I can deal with the gap, because he's got just like a black space behind him, so it's not that noticeable in that case. But otherwise, it is a little bit it's a little bit disappointing. And I'm also disappointed that I don't normally talk about articulation this much, but I am a bit disappointed with the thighs in that there's no cut for a thigh swivel here, and they totally could have put one there. Instead, move his butt flap out of the way here. The thighs rotate here, which is fine, but like there are certain positions, especially if you want to move his legs up, that they don't really want to rotate. So you kind of have to adjust ahead of time, then bring the butt flap back down, and it can be a little bit of a trial getting this guy posed in certain ways. And of course, if you rotate the thighs out too much, you got this going on here. You kind of have to do a lot of fairly dead-on stuff. It's like you can pose him, but I like to keep my figures in sort of like a standing relaxed, but still kind of awesome and not dynamic, but like, you know, more interesting than just standing stock straight poses. And it's difficult to do that with this guy. It's a little disappointing. I love the tricks with the arms, though. That's really cool, how they look like arms, and then you transform them slightly, and suddenly it's like, oh crap, that's the side of a truck cab. That's really interesting. And the hands are fine. I do kind of want to go in there and do the fingers in silver, but that's probably asking for trouble with the way this guy, they're the fingers. They move a lot. That's, probably not a great idea. Still, lots of nice silver. The chest has a lot of really nice detail too, which, I mean, I suppose it should, since, like, 80% of the robot mode is chest, but I do like the gold and copper coloring in there, and of course, lots and lots of silver. The pec panels, again, not sure about accuracy or whatever, but I just kind of want to go like this and tilt them up just a little bit more. But it is some really, really nice detailing, and I love how a decent bit of the collar up here is actually the back of the truck. I also love how the top of the cab turns inside out to make the shoulder pauldrons, or at least parts of the shoulder pauldrons. That's really... it's just a lot of really cool transformation tricks on this guy. And then, of course, there is the head, which have some mild issues with the head as well. Like, it's really stiff to look up and down. It's doable, but it's just stiff, and if you pull the wrong way, then you're just going to disengage that, which doesn't destroy anything. It's just, I wish that clipped on better. But if you push kind of down and then tilt back, you have to kind of move like this to move the head up and down. Well, up anyway, but it gets the job done. Really stiff to turn too. And that's partially because of how tightly I screwed it in at the base there, but like it was wiggling, so I thought, like, you can still see it kind of wiggles a little bit, so I thought, I should probably tighten it more. And it's apparently too tight. I don't know, the tolerances of this guy are weird. And yes, there are the two head options. There's the Nemesis Prime head, which is the one I went with, because in my mind, the Nemesis Prime face with the faceplate is definitely the most awesome of the different options. But there is the regular face with the faceplate and non-faceplated options, and this also has a non-faceplated option. Those are all in the box though, so sorry. But I do really like this. I love the simple asymmetry of this design, where he's just got that red stripe going down the side of his face. And it's also interesting, I'm not sure if this is an oversight or if this is actually how it was in the movie, but that blue does not carry over to this side. It's left unpainted, and don't know if that was intentional or what, but I don't mind it. It helps to kind of differentiate that one side a little bit more from the other. Plus, it's kind of like you look at him from this side and it's like, oh, it's Optimus. And then you look at it from this side. Nope, that's not Optimus. It does have the light up feature, but I did not get batteries for either head. Sorry. And also, if you want to swap out the faces, you just, typical reach under, pop the faceplate out, put in the new one. And if you want to swap the heads, it's easiest to do partway through the transformation, but you just unscrew that and then take the head off, put the new head on. It's like the entire head and neck assembly like pops on there, and then you screw it back into place. And now for a weird change of pace, I'm actually going to look at his back, because I'm really impressed with this. And it was the same thing with Perukill. I love how clean this back is. It actually looks pretty darn good. It's a little bit messy at the calves. Look down there, like there is some obvious truck stuff going on there, but like it's tucked away so nicely that it's still relatively clean. And I just love how there's, like, I don't really think you can say that there's really any kibble on this guy. He's very, very cleanly transformed. I really love that. And I mean, I said it already, but I love the engineering on this guy. One other thing, these bits on the side here, like you can kind of see that there's this squarish panel that goes up the center, and then you've got these two flaps on the sides. Those are the insides of the side of like the door bits of the truck cabs, like that whole assembly. Like, I love how that works and how they fold in and the way they're painted and shaped and everything. It's like it turns inside out and actually fills in his sides. Doesn't fill them in to the point where his chest doesn't look absurdly huge. But I mean, without those there, it'd look even more ridiculous. So yeah, that's just another really, really smart trick that they did with the engineering on this guy. I love what they did here. And one more thing before we wrap up, I get him out of the way here for a sec, because I think we need to talk a little bit about Perukill because of the accessory that he comes with. And it's a simple little thing. Just move that off to the side for now. But yeah, comes with a knife. And It's cool. I mean, it's a simple little thing. I still think he's fine with just the hook hand and the giant rifle, but the knife does add a little bit more. And, you know, you can have him hold it. It doesn't really hold super securely, but you can hold it. You can peg it into the back of either hand. I kind of wish there was a place for him to holster the knife elsewhere. Like, not necessarily on his back, because, you know, the rifle is going to be along there, but, like, if there were just pegs elsewhere, like maybe along his hip or waist, or even like his shin, but there really isn't. And unfortunately, I already tried it out, but just in case anyone is wondering, unfortunately, the pegs on the knife are not thick enough to work with any of these holes. They're screw holes, but still, like, that's not gonna... It doesn't hold in anywhere on the rifle. And that's, like there, it's kind of hanging, but it's not actually pegged in. And that's a little bit of a disappointment. I really do wish that this had some other way to attach to Perukill other than being pegged into the back of his hand. Like so. Like so. It doesn't want to peg into the back of his hand. Great. Let's try it like this. Maybe this. Oh, okay. So that side, interesting. So one side is noticeably, like, that's in there, but it's a little wobbly. The other side, not pegged in at all. That's interesting. I wonder if the thicker peg would actually work on the rifle here. Let's see. Nope. Okay. Well, regardless, he's got some options, which is, you know, it's cool. I just wish that this knife could peg elsewhere, just for a little bit more variety. I think, you know, it'd be cool to be able to have him, like, attach it to the gun so that you could peg it somewhere in vehicle mode when he's got the gun attached to himself. Yeah, it just seems like a missed opportunity for me. Still looks cool. I still appreciate the fact that they included it, but not what I would consider a make or break deal. Alright, anyway, that's enough about you, because we're not really talking about you. Instead, we are talking about you, and you are you are still quite a large boy. So yeah, that is it for my thoughts on Challenger. Again, definitely not perfect. I had a fair number of QC issues, like the headlight that kept falling off, the smokestacks, which now we can actually see them folded up there, and it looks nice in robot mode, but yeah, this one is totally fused in place, and this one, I was able to move it without breaking it, but it seems still kind of stuck in there, so I don't want to tempt fate with the second one. And there were some bits that I thought were a little loose. Not, like, alarmingly loose, I say, as he pitches forward. Not alarmingly loose, but I did have to go in there with some floor polish to tighten a few things up, and I may have to go in to do it again. Because, like, the hips are a little bit loose in some places, and then the foot flaps right here, those move a little too easily, and I don't know that the floor polish trick that I tried to do on them actually accomplished anything. But still, imperfect though he may be, I like him a lot. I think he looks great. Personally, I actually think he looks better than El Cid. I think El Cid looks good if you don't have Challenger to compare him to. Granted, I think the transformation on El Cid looks nightmarish, but just visually, there are certain elements to El Cid that I'm not a fan of. I mean, there are some that I'm not a fan of here too, but I think he pulls it off in a much cleaner fashion. But anyway, yes, Challenger. Challenger, very cool. Don't know that it's the miraculous, amazing thing that I'd sort of built up in my mind as I spent months and months and months and months waiting for it to come out after multiple delays and radio silence. But what's here is spectacular. It really is. Definitely not perfect, but still great. Anyway, that's going to do it. That is enough of Challenger for now. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you appreciated all those size comparisons, because, whew, I don't think I'm going to be doing that again. But what are your thoughts on Challenger? How do you feel in the Challenger versus El Cid wars? And also, there's the Toy World version that's on its way out, but I don't know. Personally, I have mixed feelings about Toy World. Sometimes I'm into their stuff, and other times I'm very much not, and this is a case of me very much not. Still, I'm curious about your thoughts. And any of you out there who have Challenger, have you had similar issues that you've been able to fix? And if so, by all means, let me know, because I would love to have a more reliable way to take care of some of these issues. Or have any of you managed to get your hands on the reported second wave that deals with a lot of the QC issues that this guy had? Also, since there are options, what do you think? Plated face, not plated face, regular Prime, Nemesis Prime? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art, eventually, is more than meets the eye.